President-elect Donald Trump says he is going to appeal his conviction in the New York criminal hush money case after being sentenced without any penalties. Cobb joins us now to discuss. He was formerly a member of the Trump administration's legal team. He is also a former federal prosecutor. Mr. Cobb, thanks so much for being with us. You know, this sentencing, as you know, included no jail time, probation, or fines for the president-elect, but he can't own a gun and he must provide a DNA sample for New York's crime data bank. What is your reaction to this sentencing, and do you believe justice was served?
That's a very difficult question, particularly with regard to this case. This case, unlike the two federal cases, which were serious cases and well founded in the law, this case was always subject to significant criticism for the way it was constructed and pursued, and with good reason. I think this case may not survive on appeal, but what was at issue today was not the legality of the indictment or the validity of the charges, but was the opportunity to honor and perfect the verdict of 12 jurors who were unanimous that Trump had committed 34 felonies, and in their judgment, was guilty and needed to be sentenced. The sentencing perfects his conviction. It permanently puts him in the ranks of convicted felons. And it also triggers his appellate rights, which I think, a year or more down the road will likely result in overturning of this conviction. But even if it does not, it doesn't undermine what the jury did. The jury did their duty and found him guilty, and today he stands guilty as charged.
You and other members of the nonprofit group State Democracy Defenders Action filed an amicus brief to the Supreme Court asking the justices not to stop this sentencing. Why was it important for it to go forward?
Well, it was important to go forward because, as we've seen, Trump rail against the legal system, the rule of law, every legal institution from, state courts to federal courts to the Supreme Court. It was important to reinforce the significance and the dominance of the rule of law in America, and to try to restore the concept, which has been dinged up a little bit, that no one is above the law. There was no legal basis, in my view, and in the view of the majority of the Supreme Court justices, for pausing the sentencing. I think Trump's complaints were largely political and personal, but did not really have a legal basis. And I think it was very important that the court act according to the law and permit the sentencing to go ahead as it did.
I mean, at this point, the president-elect is facing no penalty, as we said, from this trial. His other two federal cases involving January 6th, as well as the classified documents, has been dropped. And, of course, the prosecutor in the election interference case in Georgia has been disqualified. I mean, at this point, could he face any further legal repercussions, or is this all behind him now?
So it's largely behind him. The only potential legal repercussions would be in the Georgia case. The two federal cases are, dead and over, and I'm sure that he will quickly pardon his two co-defendants in the Florida case, and that case will be totally dead and over. But with regard to the Georgia case, he doesn't really have any control over that. On the other hand, as you point out, Fani Willis has been disqualified for her ethical lapses and misconduct, and they have to restart that if they so choose. They say they will, but we shall see. I think that case also suffers in terms of its construction, and I doubt that the case as charged ever gets to trial. But certainly as to the president, it's not going to go to trial for at least the next 4 years, in my view. Although there's no dominant rule or case law that dictates that. The policy of the Justice Department in federal cases is that a president can't be criminally prosecuted while in office, and I think that policy will be extended to the civil case should the Georgia courts try and do anything.
All right, Cobb, thank you so much.
Yes, my pleasure, Nicole. Thanks for having me.